Welcome back to It's Only Money here on Real Radio 104.1 with Tammy and Scott Brown, financial advisor for Edgewater Family Wealth. EdgewaterFamilyWealth.com is the website. And good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Happy Sunday.
Long time no see, Scott. You came in on the Monsters on Thursday.
Woo! That was a whirlwind.
Yeah. It's a different kind of broadcast.
Yeah, it's you're getting peppered from all sides in there. You better have your helmet on.
Yes, head on a swivel at all times because you don't know where it's coming from, and it's coming at you hot and fast.
Yeah, I think what we figured out in talking to Savannah is the critical advisor-client relationship begins when you have matching bracelets.
Yes, she was. That's how you win Savannah over. If you would have came in a blonde wig, you would have been best friends.
Oh my God! Yeah.
Well, it was very cool to have you, and it's such a different environment because I love this show. And when they asked, like, how do you think Scott would do? I was like, you can crush it.
Well,
we have a lot of fun on this show.
Isn't that sweet?
So much. Tammy, how are you doing?
Doing great. Yeah, we don't have the same energy at the other show, but still we have our own gig going on. So.
Yeah, we'll get you like a horn that goes like to really pump up the energy because Tammy has the hardest part of I believe It's Only Money, which is he gives us the numbers with Tammy.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
All right.
Background music.
Whoa, you have your own music now. That is
wow,
fantastic.
man.
That's when you know you've made it in show business right there.
1,000%.
All right.
Tammy, what do we got for numbers this week?
All right. I'm really happy I have this tone now. I'm gonna put it as a ringtone to my phone too. We will start with the mortgage rates, actually. Yeah, so the latest mortgage rate we're looking at for 30 years is up to around 6% now.
Ooh. Hello.
Yeah, it touched it a little bit. It went down to 5.85, but it is expected to overshoot the 6%.
My son's trying to finance a house right now. He is not going to be pleased by this information.
But this is obviously the highest mortgage rates have ever been, correct?
That is not correct.
Not correct.
Not even remotely correct. No, we've had way more. I think I said it at one point. My first house was at 6 3/4. I think in 91.
Was it?
Maybe. Yeah.
That's an excellent rate for back then.
Oh heck yeah! Back in we've talked about the 80s and the late 70s. I mean, you would have given your front teeth for 6 something.
Oh, yeah.
It was an 8, 9, 10, 11, some crazy number.
Easy, yeah.
I remember my parents whining about it, and I don't know, I just want to play with my Tinker Toys. But yeah, there was definitely an issue back then.
Yeah, 6%. Time changes, I guess. Yeah, time changes.
And then they become the same again, right?
Yeah, the cycle.
Yeah.
Always.
The point of the mortgage rate going up, though, is to coax housing prices to go down. Is that how it's supposed to work?
Right now, yeah, the purpose behind it is to, let's say, crush demand, so things will kind of ease down back until all the construction picks up, and then we have enough houses, at least for rate-wise, enough for all the demand that we have right now.
Well, it's simple supply and demand. We don't have enough houses to meet the demand we have right now, and that means that's why when you go to buy a house, or at least 6 months ago, there'd be 4 offers in front of you. And if you didn't have cash, they didn't even talk to you. So
let me ask you a question, and I know nothing about any of this, so this might be a very stupid question. But as the baby boomer generation dies off, are we going to have too many houses, and it's going to create the opposite problem?
I don't think so. I mean, the birth rates are down, not only in this country but across the world.
That's true. Developed ones, yeah.
Yeah, but I don't see that in the immediate future, and baby boomers aren't going to all die tomorrow because they extend into like 1965, I think, which is I'm like one. I am a boomer by a month. So
Are you really?
Don't be in a hurry to get rid of us.
No.
First of all,
I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, nice going. Now I'm paranoid, like checking my blood pressure. Like, what does he know? But yeah, I think I'm 57, so you're going to be stuck with us for another 20 years for the most part. But yeah, I don't see an overabundance in housing anytime soon. Not to say it couldn't happen, because it does happen from time to time. But I think you're maybe 20 years from that birth rate starting to show up. But I think the millennials are a really big generation, are they not? Am I wrong about that?
Not anywhere near the baby boomers.
No. What is it, Gen Y?
Gen Y and it's all slowing down. One of the weirdest articles I ever read was like, kids just aren't hooking up anymore.
Yeah, I read that too. Yeah,
and it's going to be interesting. I know countries like Japan have this as a huge problem where their older generation is basically out not working anymore, and they do not have enough people to replace their workforce. So like you see these like vending machines that would be full stores before.
Yeah. Japan. Now, funny enough, Denmark had a similar problem.
Yeah.
About 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Like severe.
What did they
problem.
give everybody, like candles and Marvin Gaye records or something? How did that? What happened
in
there?
Denmark? Actually, they ran ads on TV.
Yeah.
Promoting summer camps. And they have a big slogan that says, "Do it for Denmark."
No, they did not.
Oh yeah, they did.
Wow.
And their birth rate started picking up again.
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
Well, there you go. Problem solved.
Well, high school me would not have saved the population in summer camp.
Yeah.
So anyway,
This is awkward.
Yeah. Right? Anyway, we're going back to the mortgage bit.
Thank God.
All right. So the reason we brought that up is, let me ask you, Ryan, do you remember what was your mortgage rate on the house that you got?
2.75%.
Okay, that's a very good one.
Yes.
Now, have you ever thought that, well, if you would have gotten that house, and let's assume your house is worth, for example, like $450
$10 million.
Right.
450. You're so cute, Tammy. Yes, let's call it that.
Let's just assume that, right? Because that's the number I ran. So
yeah.
You know.
Actually, now
Is
the way
this his house here or his winter house or the summer house in the Hamptons? Because we want to be clear here.
But yeah, actually, it's almost that now because since I bought it 2 years ago, it's gone up by like $80,000. So it's
Excellent.
and I've done nothing to it, which blows my mind every single day.
Well done, sir.
Yes.
Well done, yeah. Very well thought. So let's just say that this $450 house, $1,000 house, you put a 20% down payment. You end up with what's a 20% on that, like $90,000.
Mm-hmm.
So you end up with about $360,000, and you want to go right now, and then you want to buy it, right? The mortgage rate on it will be 6%. Translates into a monthly mortgage of $2,150.
Whoa.
Right. 6 months ago, when it was 3%, you would have paid $1,500.
So $600 difference, which is huge to a young person
Very.
trying to budget, hopefully, for purchasing a home. That's the drug-induced coma that the Fed is, which is not good news to young people who want to buy homes, of course. But yeah, that is the objective, is to slow down the buying, which slows down the cost of lumber, which slows down the cost of labor, which yada yada yada. So that is
The whole cycle.
nonetheless, if you're a 30-year-old couple and you're trying to get into your first home, this is not welcome news.
No, it seemed like we planned it. It always feels like we got lucky.
Yeah.
But like with preparation, because convincing my fiance that we got to buckle down for like 5 years and save the money to buy a house.
Yeah.
But when we got our first mortgage payment and it was $975, which is way less than I paid for any apartment in my life. It was a beautiful moment. And then to see everything go up after that, it's almost like I have like survivor's guilt from that, because I got friends who like immediately couldn't, like they got priced out within 6 months.
Right.
So, yay, young people! But you just gotta go. You got time to recover.
Yeah.
Things will change.
Yeah.
Well, they will change. And so you were talking earlier about the total interest paid on that note. So when you think about a 30-year mortgage, people often, you look at one of those amortization schedules and you're like, oh my God, look at I bought a $200,000 and I paid $300,000 in interest, right?
Yeah.
Like, how do banks have the big buildings? Now we know. So what is the difference in total interest paid, say at 3% versus 6% on a 30-year mortgage?
So for the 3% on that house, you would end up paying about $186,000
on a
interest.
On how big of a house?
$450,000 with a 20% down.
Right.
Over the 30-year period of the mortgage.
You say you've paid enough interest to buy almost a whole nother house.
Almost, yeah.
Yeah.
Because your total at that point will be $545,000.
Damn you capitalists.
They always get you somehow.
Yeah.
But most people don't. Like, you probably don't know this off the top of your head, but most people don't do the full 30 years, right?
Yeah, a lot do. Yeah, they do. I mean, not everybody. Well, I guess in so much that they move is what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, you're right. Most people, I don't know how long the average couple's in the house. It's probably 6 or 7 years would be my observation. I've lived in my house for 30 years, but most people don't. Back when you were my parents' age, people that are now in their late 70s, early 80s, a lot of them did. There was like this whole mortgage burning party. Have you ever been to one of those?
I have not, but I hope to in 28 years.
Yeah, I remember my grandmother. I was probably like 9 or something, and we got dragged to my grandma's house, and she
Wait, yes, I did do one of these at my grandma's house.
There you go. And she took out a piece of paper, and I thought, what is she doing? The woman's lost it. She's burning paper. Just give me my burger. What are you doing? So they burned it in a grill. So that's the funny part. But when we come back, I want to finish the thought because the difference in total interest on which is 3% is 180 grand. When we come back, let's talk about what it is at 6%.
Yeah. All right. We'll be right back with more It's Only Money here on Real Radio 104.1. Welcome back to It's Only Money with Tammy and Scott Brown of Edgewater Family Wealth. Again, edgewaterfamilywealth.com is the website. And we're hanging out here on your Sunday morning. And we did not finish the numbers with Tammy.
1, 2, 3, 4.
This is so you, by the way. This is so you.
So cool.
Yeah.
So we were going over what the pricing difference would be if your interest rate was at 3%, and Scott gave us the ominous segue of what happens at 6% is where we're at, Tammy. So why don't you kick it off right there?
So in the 3%, the total cost will be $546 is what we said, while in the 6% will be $777.
Oh my God! So $200,000 more dollars?
Yeah.
Ouch.
In interest.
I'll tell you what, they don't tell you that when you're signing.
No, I leave that. That's in the big stack of the papers. It's at the very bottom of the stack.
Yeah, I noticed the number was in there, but buried.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you bought a $400,000 house, but it's going to cost $800,000. So and that brings up a really good point. Is one thing I was taught, and I wasn't taught much about money when I was a kid, but one thing that did sink in, and maybe it was my parents, maybe I heard it somewhere, I don't know, but paying your mortgage every 2 weeks versus every month. So and it's the same amount of money, right? If you have $1,000 mortgage payment, but you pay $500 every 2 weeks, you whittle the principal down. Now, here's a warning to you. When you send that payment in, because I did that for a year or two where I was doing it, and then I realized they're not really applying this to the principal, right? Or whittling down the principal. So the interest charge wasn't going down much. And then so somebody pointed out to me that you have to tell the mortgage company, apply this additional amount to principal, right?
You have to tell them that?
You got to tell them that. You do, because they're not wired to help you save money, yes? So and I don't know the numbers on this. People can do their own math here and make their own phone calls. But if you just pay that $1,000, but instead of paying $1,000 on the 30th, pay $500 on the 15th and $500 on the 30th, that is a substantial savings. I have clients over the years when I was younger and they were younger that they would put an extra couple $100 every month on it. So you want to whittle that interest payment down and take that $200,000 or $300,000 in interest payments down to $100 or less. Just keep pounding at the principal as best you can, whether that's every couple of weeks or by adding an extra couple $100 at the end of the month.
So don't do what I've been doing, which is just add in more money on the check that you send them without making any kind of notation.
I would be careful. It's not to say that they're not doing it, but my experience early on was they won't.
Okay.
Until you point out to them, please apply to additional principal. And some of the coupons, do you have coupons?
No.
Is that even a thing anymore? You used to get a coupon booklet.
Get a coupon, like a buy one, get one house?
Well, kind of. Yeah, pretty much.
No, I don't have coupons at all.
No coupons?
No.
Oh, what's the world come? There's no coupons anymore?
I don't remember.
You don't have coupons either?
No.
I do everything digitally.
That's the best part of buying a house is the coupon. Anyway, I digress.
You are blowing my mind right now.
Yeah, there was actual paper coupons. You'd pull them out, write your amount in there, and they used to have a box in that additional principal, yes or no, right? And my first one didn't have that. I think the second mortgage I got did have that. So anyway, the point is if it's a digital version and you're doing your payment online, make sure there's a place you can notate how to pay that extra amount towards principal.
Okay, I think we did do that. It's just all auto paid now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's a brilliant way to reduce your cost over an extended period of time.
Yeah, it takes out like years. Out of
Yeah.
it.
Oh, for sure. For
Wow.
sure. You know, and a lot of times people say, well, I'll do a 10-year mortgage or a 15-year mortgage, which I get, and it's okay. But sometimes that's a burden on the person where they're like locked into this. Instead of making a $1,000 payment, they're making a $1,500 15-year payment. And I never did that, but I still paid it off in like 10 or 15 years. So I rather than let's say you're a young couple and something bad happens and you don't have the extra $500, well, you've kind of locked yourself into it if you do the 15-year mortgage, right? Now, the flip side of that is you might get a better rate to do a 15-year note than to do a 30-year note. But I was always afraid as a young person, well, what if something comes up, the transmission goes out, the air conditioner goes, whatever, the kid needs something, which happens to young people.
Mm-hmm.
So I did a 30-year note, but I treated it like a 15-year note. So I think that's one way people can kind of have their cake and eat it too. They don't have the burden on top of them, but they're acting like they do.
Sweet. Well, I just got the best. That's why I love doing this show. I feel like it's my personal advice show, and now I got to go home and check records and paperwork and all that stuff. So, Tammy, was that the end of the numbers, or we got more numbers?
We got some good news now.
Oh, boy.
Right. So, to your point, when you said that 2 years passed when you purchased your house and it increased in price significantly. So, looking at the listing price now across all areas in the nation, and we see that almost 50% of the top 20 metropolitan areas are in Florida.
Okay. That sounds like a good thing.
That's a good thing.
If
It
I
means-
bought the house.
Well, yeah, because you're a house owner. So that means number one, actually, it's Miami. No surprise. Number two, in the country.
Mm-hmm.
Number two comes Sarasota,
Okay. Sleepy town.
right?
Mhm.
Number three, Fort Myers. Then comes Tennessee, Nashville. Then again, Lakeland, Winter Haven.
What?
Yeah.
Lakeland.
Lakeland?
Yeah, and right,
Who's moving to Lakeland?
that's what it says here. It says we're actually about 29.9% in price.
They're
You-
up 29%? Is
In
there even,
Lakeland.
is there even a Publix? Oh, no, I guess there is a lot of Publixes in Lakeland now that I think about it.
Yeah, I think
But,
they're based out of
yeah,
there.
I think they are based out of there, yeah.
You get the ultimate
But that's the
Publix.
only thing in Lakeland as
Yeah,
far as I
right.
know.
And then right after that, we are number 7 in the country with 29.2.
Orlando.
Orlando.
Wow.
Feels good. Feels good to win something.
We are the champions.
Yeah, we are.
Well, that's interesting, and there's obviously there's some reasons for that. Our sunshine and all the good weather, except for the blistering heat right now,
And all the people escaping and driving from these other repressive cities
Yes.
and driving the price. I mean, my mom just bought so she sold her house. She was able to sell it like 12 minutes, and she tried to buy a new house and was in a pricing bidding war with every time with 20 something people and these cash offers crazy, and it took her a minute to find a place to live, and she sort of was running out of time because she sold her house so fast.
Yeah, and a lot of people run into that. So that's you're brilliant on one end because you had 20 people bidding on your house, but then you go to buy the next house and you're 19 of those people who didn't buy your house are bidding on with you on the next house. So it's that is slowing down. Some of that is starting to dissipate for sure, but. Yeah, that is. I've had more than a few people I know end up renting because they got stuck. They're like, "Oh, I got a bunch of money, but nobody wants it." Right? Yeah. So that's. I think that's going to slow down. That appears to be the net result of these rate increases, but that has been and to some degree continues to be a problem.
Mm. Yeah. But it makes me feel like did I buy a meme stock of a home?
No such thing.
Because with my meme stocks, as you know, they went through the roof rapidly for essentially no reason. A lot of internet dum-dums, but and you always are like, well, you're only getting 5-10% over 10 years as you go along, and then suddenly I've got a fourth more that my house is worth, and it's just like, did I mess up here?
Well, everything deviates to the mean, right? I mean, if you were up 10% every year for the last 3, that's likely means, if we know the historic averages on homes, and I don't know the exact number, but let's say it's 4 or 5% a year, which I think is pretty close, And you say, all right, well, I was up 10, and then I was up 12, and then I was up 13, and you think, well, this is a trend. It's going to go up 15%. No, it's going to eventually cycle through, and you're going to have a year where it goes up none, and a year where it's down 1%, and a year where it's up 2%, and a year where it's up 9%. And that's how we come to averages, people. That's the cycles are what brings the averages. If you say, well, historically, for 100 years, the U.S. housing market has grown by 5% a year, but my house is going to grow by 15% a year, you are the dum-dum. It is more than likely you're going to cycle down, and you shouldn't be freaked out. That's the problem, is expectations, right? You think, oh, it was up 15%. Oh, what? It's only up 1%. Right? And then you think, oh, the whole system's come apart. Who did this to me? Who's the president? I want to talk to that. It's this nonsense that things grow in a straight line and you've identified a pattern. And no, it's just how things work in capitalism. It's messy. They go up, they go down, and they reach averages.
Yep, and I know you're a financial advisor with Edgewater Family Wealth, and it's not necessarily housing that you do, but I do for when we come back from the break. I have a couple of questions because I have been buying individual stocks, and I've just been sort of doing that, right? And according to the internet, I might be doing things incorrectly by doing it that way. And I want to hear your thoughts on that, because the individual stocks that I've been picking, it seems like I'm single-handedly ruining their companies every time I pick one of them. So I do want to talk to you about your thoughts on things like mutual funds and annuities and things like that when we get back. How about that?
10-4.
Sounds good.
All right. You're listening to It's Only Money here on Real Radio 104.1 with Scott Brown, financial advisor for Edgewater Family Wealth. Stick around. We'll be right back. Welcome back to It's Only Money with financial advisor Scott Brown of Edgewater Family Wealth. His left and right hand man, Tammy, is here this morning on a beautiful Sunday. And before we went to break, I was talking about how I only just pick individual stocks from my stock picking app. And when I first started about a year or two ago, Infinite Money Machine, and I was crushing it. Now I see a lot of ads where for things like mutual funds and annuities, and I'm sure you know 1,000 of these things. But for me, when I see mutual fund, for some reason, I just think of like advice my grandma gave me, or like I think I even got one as a gift one time.
That could be.
Are those still relevant? Should I be moving to that kind of system and just stop this stock picking nonsense?
No, and as we've discussed many, many times, these things are products. They're tools. It's like a hammer, right? You're really good for driving a nail, not so great for washing windows, right? People it's funny to me when I meet people and they come in the office and they hate this or I hate annuities. My grandpa was killed by an annuity. I don't know what they think. It's just a thing. It's a tool. It's a product that insurance companies sell that grow tax deferred, and you can put them in this investment or that investment or their. It's not a bad thing or a good thing. It's just a tool, right? The same is true of mutual funds. And to your point on buying individual stocks, if you're comfortable buying individual stocks, it's certainly a more cost-efficient way to buy, right? Because if you buy a mutual fund, and let's talk about what a mutual fund is. It's basically a basket of stocks or bonds, right? There are stock funds, there are bond funds, there are funds that only invest in international stocks, there are funds that only invest in small cap stocks, there's funds that invest in both, there's funds that invest stocks and bonds. There's whatever flavor of mutual fund you want is out there. So on one hand, when people started investing years ago, it really was the best way because it was buying individual stocks was difficult. It was expensive 20, 30 years ago. That's changed today. But I still think there's a place for the new one because if you have $1,000 to invest, let's say, and you want to buy Apple or heaven forbid Tesla or something, you could buy like one share or maybe two shares. You can't get diversification with $1,000 buying stocks because they're too expensive. You can only buy one or two of each. And maybe only 3 different stocks, yes? So what a mutual fund does for you is it takes your $1,000 and it buys 30, 40, 80, 100 stocks for you, so you're diversified to begin with. Is it arguably the most cost-effective way? Probably not. There are tax implications in them depending on what you buy. But for a beginning investor, I would argue there's nothing wrong with an ETF, which is a kind of stripped-down version of a mutual fund. The difference being is most mutual funds are quote-unquote professionally managed, meaning the manager of that fund, he or she is trading the stocks for you. They think Ford's no good and they want to buy GM, or they think GM's no good and they want to buy Tesla. They make those decisions for you. In an ETF, they're simply buying the index and calling it a day. They're not switching anything. They're not making strategic moves, usually. And for that, they're less costly. So what I would say is, rather than throwing the baby out with the bathwater, well, I'm in a 401k and my only damn choice is mutual funds. Well, that's okay. You know, there are plenty of people I've retired with over $1 million in their 401k in the crappy funds that people are always complaining about, right? What I would say is, and to be fair, a lot of 401ks or 403bs are now going to ETF models to bring the cost down. But it's a great way for a beginning investor to get diversified. Because, again, if you say, I want to put $100 a month in, well, you can't even buy one share of Tesla or Apple, for that matter, for $100, right? So if you put $100 in American Growth Fund, and I'm not advocating for that fund, but it's an old one that a lot of people know about, Vanguard's whatever growth fund, you're going to get 150 stocks all at once with your $100. So the thing about products that, again, always kills me is people come in with these really strong opinions, and usually those opinions are either the byproduct of a story they heard or read, or maybe they even had happened to them early in life. I bought a mutual fund and it went down 30, 40, 50%, so I got out. Well, that was 2000 and the market collapsed, and it wasn't the fund. The market just did poorly, and you think you now attribute that downturn in the market to that product you owned at that time. That's not necessarily true. The same is true of annuities. Annuities have their uses. I think they're a little more rare than as they are sold, because I think there's a lot of people out there that just sell annuities to people maybe because they pay the advisor well. I'm not saying that happens, but it might.
Obviously, I know exactly what an annuity is.
Yes.
I wouldn't want to embarrass anybody by just saying it. But for the people out there that might not know,
Right.
what's the difference with an annuity?
Well, this is definitely not for you, Ryan, because I
Yes.
know you know.
Of course.
Yeah. But an annuity is kind of an investment wrapped in an insurance wrapper. So you might have a company like State Farm or Allstate or Prudential, and they say, look, and annuities were created as the original retirement account. This is before IRAs. So what the government said is, look, we'll create this insurance thing. Basically what happens, the insurance companies lobbied and said, hey, give us this thing we can sell. And they went, okay, people need to save for retirement. We'll call it tax deferred, and you guys do what you want with it. So they created these annuities. You could put $1,000, $1 million, whatever you want in it. And they said if you earn 4%, it's tax deferred till you take it out, right? And that was kind of the forerunner and the thought behind creating IRAs later on down the road. So an annuity is an investment package. It could be a fixed rate. It could be an indexed annuity. It could be an annuity with mutual funds inside of it. So you could buy an annuity, what they call a variable annuity. You could put the money in it. You could pick mutual funds inside of it, and all the growth is tax deferred, right? Now, some people say, well, would I do that with an IRA? And the answer is probably not, right? Because an IRA is already tax deferred. So why would you pay the extra cost, this is the important part, for an annuity when you're already in a tax deferred vehicle? It's redundant, if you will. You can't be doubly tax deferred, right? So an annuity, to answer your question, even though I know you know the answer,
Of course, yeah.
is a tax deferred vehicle that is a product produced by insurance companies. And to be super clear here, they're not nefarious. They're just a thing. They're just a product. They are often misused. So if you're buying an annuity, make sure you understand why, because annuities sometimes come with guarantees. They might come with a death benefit or what they call a living benefit where they guarantee income. So you may say, well, if I bought an ETF, right, that would cost me 0.25% annually. And you say, that's fair. I'm willing to pay the company that put this together, and I'll pay them 0.25%. And somebody says, no, don't buy an ETF, buy an annuity. You go, okay, what's that? Well, it has a living benefit and a death benefit. Okay, what does that cost? 2%. What? I'm going to pay literally 10 times for the annuity what I was for the ETF, right? And somebody would say, well, then the annuity's bad. Well, not if you want the guarantee. If you say one of the things that's important to me is if I put in $100,000 and I die, I want it guaranteed that my heirs get the $100,000. Maybe you say that's worth it. Most people do not, to be fair, but in the ETF you won't get that because you put $100,000 in an ETF and 100 turns into 50, your heirs get 50. So again, it's one of those where it's really weird to me when people come in and they hate a product.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it's it's not something to hate. It's just a tool.
Well, it seems like annuity has a history with it. You know, like you say annuity, and probably your great-grandfather could have had an annuity then if it's one of the first products. I mean, why would I go with the old school product? I mean, like, I'm not going to buy a old CRT black and white TV when the flat screen TV of a Roth IRA exists. You know what I mean? Like, do they have a function, or is the newer product always necessarily better than by default?
I don't think it's I mean, they do get better, because consumers demand things, right? So 40, 50 years ago, mutual funds cost like 7 or 8% to get into. Like, that was the entry point.
Oof.
Like, you gave somebody 10 grand and you had 920 the next day.
Wow.
When people were like, cool, give me more. That was a thing, right? But, the consumer over time said, we like these mutual funds and we like these annuities, but we ain't paying 8% for these things. And companies got wise, and one company said, all right, 7%. And then 5 years later, another company said 6%. And that's how we got to where we are today, right? So the average cost of a mutual fund, I'm going to guess, but the average cost of a growth mutual fund with stocks is probably 50 or 60 basis points, or, around 0.5%. Yes. Mm-hmm. Historically, that's been 1.25%, 1.5%. So costs have come down. So yes, in that regard, there's been an improvement in products. ETFs are even cheaper. Even annuities have gotten a little more cost competitive, but that doesn't mean that annuities don't have their uses. I'll give you an example. Let's say you're 85 years old. You've got 200 grand to your name. You need $20,000 a year to live. And you say, well, that's 10%. I can't get 10% anywhere, right? That's not a guaranteed thing. But you might go to an insurance company who sells annuities and say, look, I'm going to give you my 200 grand. It's yours. Keep it. But I want 20 grand a year. And they're going to do the math. So he's 85. He'll probably be dead in 5 years, right? They'll do their mortality table. The nerds in the basement will figure out this guy's likely to die before we pay him back the full 200. So in that case, it's a win-win. The insurance company gets the 200. The old dude gets his 20 grand a year till he dies.
What a morbid, weird job, but totally necessary, I suppose. But, continuing, you saying being 85, I can't help but think about, like, my own retirement. And we were talking last week a little bit about how much do you need to retire? And we never actually finished up that whole conversation. So I'd like to get to that when we get back. Right now, you're listening to It's Only Money with financial advisors Scott Brown and Tammy from Edgewater Family Wealth. Again, that website, edgewaterfamilywealth.com. And we'll be right back. Welcome back to It's Only Money here on Real Radio 104.1 with Scott Brown and Tammy from Edgewater Family Wealth. Again, the website, edgewaterfamilywealth.com. That's how you get a hold of the gentleman. And before we went to break, we're talking about how much would I need to retire? And that, I think, is the question on most people's minds. I guess it would depend on a lot of different factors, from what age do you plan on being retired to are you ever going to retire? But I mean, I'm sure there's not a clear-cut answer like you're going to give me right now, and you're going to be like, right, it's $1.2 million, and that's what you need. So how much money is it, though?
It's not a clear-cut answer.
Ah! Yeah. I thought I was tricking you by
Although
giving you that.
$1.2 million would be good for most people. So here's the thing. Like, people come into my office, and oftentimes why they're reluctant to come in is they feel like they haven't done the heavy lifting, they haven't been responsible, and they're going to be embarrassed that they're not where they think they should be. Mm-hmm. And what I find more often than not is they're closer than they think. And what I mean by that is, because, and I don't even want to get into the whole childish, Social Security is not going to be around. Yeah, okay, whatever, maybe, maybe not. But let's assume it is, because, again, as I said many times, you don't want to be the politician in the villages when they turn the spigot off, because the pitchforks are going to come out. So let's assume Social Security is going to be around. So your delta, or the difference between, say, the 80 grand you need and the 30 grand you're going to get from Social Security is 50 grand, right? That's simple math. A lot of people haven't even had that conversation with themselves. Well, I make $73,250 a year. I put $5 grand a year into my 401k, and then there's this and there's that, and I won't have this or that, and I won't have a 401k. So maybe I need 65 grand a year to live. They say, all right, and again, most people haven't even done that. They can't even do that 2 or 3 sentences with themselves. Once you have that conversation with yourself, you say, all right, I need 65 grand. So how much money do I need in a bucket to produce 65 grand? You go, but wait a minute, there's an ace in the hole. I'm going to get 35 from Social Security, so now I only need 30, right? Because the government, and I know you put the money in, yada, 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 but political arguments aside, the government technically is going to send you a check for $35,000. So you say, all right, well, I got to fix the gap. And then you say, all right, well, let's say 4% is a reasonable rate of return. So I need $900,000 or I need $800,000 in an account at 4% to produce the $35,000 or $30,000 I need to fix that gap. Most people, and that's, you say, well, Scott, that's so simple. It can't be that easy. Well, it is that easy, right? If you say, this is what I make, I like my lifestyle, or I don't, you might say, I don't like my lifestyle. I want a better lifestyle. And so I make 73, I got to find a way to have 83, right? Because I want to go to Europe, or I want to ski more, or I want to fish, whatever your thing is, right? But that's not a difficult thing. If you say, well, I don't want to do it because it's confusing, it's not. You're making it confusing, you're making it more complex because that allows you to procrastinate. You know, well, it's too complex, so I'll talk about it later. Well, no, you can literally what I just did in 60 seconds, you could do for yourself. So, and then the question becomes, well, how do I get $800,000? And that's a whole nother ball of wax. But what we were talking about, I think in the last show, which kind of drew my ire, was that people, there was a guy saying, I heard a guy say, well, the market's down 10%, now I can't retire. I got news for you. Every 2 or 3 years, the market's going to be down 10%. It might be down for a minute. It might be down for a month. It might be down for a year. But that is going to happen. If you retire at 65 and live to be 90, that's going to happen to you 7 times. So if you said, well, a 10% decline in the stock market means I can't retire, you ain't ready to retire. Plain and simple. And, you know, people say, well, how do you know that? How do you stress test a portfolio, right? Actually, there's ways to do it, right? It's no different than going to get your EKG and building a baseline. When you go to a financial advisor, at least a good one, they can say, look, you got $700,000. You said you needed $45,000 a year. Statistically, that's this number. If we look at the two worst years in the market over the last 30 years, and you had done what you say you want to do, statistically, there's still an 83% chance you'd be successful. Then you've passed the stress test, right? It's not every financial advisor out there has this software. They can do this for you. And so, but if the number's 20%, if you say, well, you know, if the market drops 10%, then my success rates statistically based on back testing are now 20%. Well, yeah, you're not ready, right? So maybe you work another year. Maybe you work 2 more years. Maybe you save a little bit more money. The answer to the question, how do I fix my retirement, is not find a financial advisor that has a better stock market than the one I have, or the better than the one I've currently been dealing with in my app, right? That's not what happens. What happens is you have a thoughtful. Now the markets might help you, and they might not. There'll be periods of time when they do, and periods of time when they don't. I'm fond of saying if you invest for 30 or 40 years, you're going to have good days and you're going to have bad days. You're going to have good years and you're definitely going to have bad years. That should not affect the planning at all. That should be taken as fact when you do the planning. So
yeah, because it's not a surprise.
It shouldn't be.
Yeah.
It often is to people somehow. You know, markets decline. We have a negative market on average every 3 or 4 years, which tells you the other 2 or 3 years are positive. People act like it's the other way around. Every damn year it's down. No, statistically that's not true. On average, the market goes up. In between, it goes down. So getting back to my original point, how much money do you need in a bucket? It's not that complicated. I make this. I'd like to make that. My mortality is 17.8 years. That stuff's all findable. If you go to any reputable financial advisor, they can tell you these things. Honestly, I think that if I had a line, and I'm not recommending this, but if I had a line outside my door of 500 people today, I could probably figure out what they need by the end of the day, all 500 of them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, again, don't line up at my office, by the way. But
party at Scott's office.
It'd take me 10 minutes to tell you if you're even close. Now, it might take hours of prep and back testing. Tammy may do a lot of work on what securities you need and how that looks. All that gobbledygook, the special sauce, if you will. But knowing what you need and how to get there is a 10-minute, 20-minute conversation.
Interesting. I should run my finances through a stress test to see if I could retire. I'm just be curious. But is there? Okay, so there's no set clear-cut number. Normally, this is a time where we take questions from the emails, and we have those, but we can push those back because I have a question right now. Because if I believe the lamestream media, Scott, currently what we're experiencing is the great unretirement.
The great unretirement.
The great unretirement. So people who were retired in this economy, they feel like they have to go back to work. If somebody goes back to work, does that then disrupt their retirement funding, or are you getting both at the same time just after a certain age?
It depends. So if you go back to work and you turn off Social Security, which is a thing, it will continue to accrue. So once you've reached your majority, which for most of us is 66 to 67 now, Social Security accrues to age 70 at about 7% a year, I think, which is a guaranteed rate of return. So if you said, I retired at 65, I'm getting myself, you know what, I hate retirement. I want to go back and do something. You can turn it off. They'll happily stop sending it to you, and it will accrue till the time you turn it back on. So that's one thing. If you go back to your job and they have they'll happily take your money and put it in a 401k again. And if they match, they'll continue to match. Most companies, if you leave and come back, they bridge your vesting, so you don't have to revest in the opportunity to get the match. So that's not always, but that's a general rule. So yeah, you can start. I know people who have retired at 66 and they go back to work somewhere part time and participate in their 401k. They're still getting Social Security. They're still getting all the stuff, but they wanted to be a starter at a golf course or some job that doesn't require a lot of effort but makes them a little bit of pocket money. So there's numerous ways to approach that. Yeah,
that always seemed to me like people are like, I got to retire. And it's just like, you can still do stuff, right? I mean, is there a minimum? Like, say you're just doing like a hobby job. It's something you love. You're not making a ton of money. Is there like a ceiling before you are technically have to stop the Social Security? Or is it like if you make $1, you get no Social Security?
There's no situation where you get no Social Security. What it does affect is the taxability. So there's a certain level, and I don't remember the exact number. I think it's in the mid-30s now. If you make over X, then they begin to tax your Social Security. So they don't take it from you. I hear that a lot is, they're not going to take it, but they are going to tax it. So effectively, they are taking some of it, I guess. But the reality is, yeah, and a lot of people, I mean, hey, listen, if you do your planning right, you're going to get taxed on your Social Security. If you're not being taxed on your Social Security, it means that your income's not probably as generous as you would like.
Interesting, but I already paid it. That's already the taxes. That's a whole.
That's a different show.
Another argument for another time, and we don't have time for that.
We do not,
because we are at the end of It's Only Money, and this one flew by, Scott. This one flew by. I feel like I'm almost ready to retire. That's how fast that went.
I think you're ready.
I really enjoyed having you on the Monsters, and I know we're going to be doing that more coming up, so it's very cool. And are you excited for it,
dude? I had a blast. It was, as you said, you got to have your head on a swivel because they're coming at you from all angles. But it was really, really fun.
Well, awesome. So check out Scott's segment. I think we're gonna be doing it on next Thursday on the Monsters in the Morning on Real Radio, and to tune back in for It's Only Money. We also have the podcast. Plus, on EdgewaterFamilyWealth.com, there is a whole section where you can get all kinds of information, including Tammy, what is your section called again? I don't have it up in front of me. I'm sorry.
Fin Talk.
Fin Talk with Tammy. So all you Fin heads out there can check that out. And if you want to email the show, it is EdgewaterFamilyWealth@RaymondJames.com. And check us out next Sunday. This has been It's Only Money with financial advisor Scott Brown. I'll see you gentlemen next Sunday.
Happy Sunday. Yeah, and clearly people are rich, right? Or wealthy. You don't have to be rich. I like the term wealthy better. I mean, to rich reminds me of like the Monopoly guy or something. But, they're people, they're regular people.
Now that guy I trust. You see the problem, Scott? You don't have a monocle.
Monocle is, now, if you can meet a guy with a monocle, I mean, like, I'm all in.
What was his financial advice? He said buy Park Place?
Where is that?
Where is that? I can't find it.
Tune in to It's Only Money with Scott Brown from Edgewater Family Wealth, Sunday mornings at 7 on Real Radio 104.1. Raymond James Financial Services, Inc., member FINRA SIPC. Edgewater Family Wealth is not a broker-dealer, is independent of RJFS.